When the Eagles released Hotel California in 1976, even they couldn't have imagined that their most ambitious song would end up becoming one of rock's greatest obsessions. More than 6 minutes of hypnotic guitars, disturbing metaphors, and lyrics that, almost half a century later, continue to divide those who believe it is just a soft rock masterpiece and those who see it as a dark manifesto about excess and decadence. In both cases, everyone agrees on one thing: few songs have captured the corrosive side of the American dream so well.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
The Eagles were coming off a golden streak. They were the undisputed kings of Californian country rock, filling stadiums, selling millions, and, from the outside, embodying the good life that Los Angeles promised to every aspiring star. That idea, the city of lights, fame, drugs, women, and disillusionment, ended up crystallizing in this song, a bitter allegory about a poisoned paradise. The song broke the mold from the start, a nearly minute-long guitar intro, composed by Don Felder, more than twice the typical length of a radio single, and a memorable closing with the iconic solo duel between Felder and Joe Walsh, considered one of the best in history. Henley insisted that Hotel California should be the lead single, against the intuition of his own guitarist. The gamble paid off. It was #1 on Billboard in 1977, won the Grammy for Best Recording of the Year, and ended up selling over 1 million copies in just 3 months. But no great rock hit is complete without its corresponding dark legend. Since its release, the song has been accused of hiding satanic messages, being an ode to unbridled hedonism, or even alluding to an insane asylum where souls were trapped forever. The images on the cover, the Beverly Hills Hotel bathed in twilight and a mysterious bald figure watching from a window, fueled conspiracy theories, from Anton LaVey to subliminal messages when played backwards. Henley and his bandmates simply laughed it off. Hotel California was simply our way of saying, "Be careful what you dream, because it can destroy you," he would later say, making it clear that the criticism was directed more at the music industry and cocaine culture than at any demonic ritual. Ironically, the band itself ended up devoured by the pressure of success and the drugs that the song denounced. They split up in the early 1980s with more resentment than glory. Today, it continues to play once every 11 minutes on US radio stations and appears on every serious list of the best rock songs. It is not just a sophisticated ballad, it is a murky mirror in which American rock dared to look at itself. Thinking about November Rain evokes unforgettable images: a small white chapel in the middle of the desert, a heart-wrenching guitar solo on the edge of a cliff, and a video that seemed more like an epic movie than a simple music video. The song was, and still is, the most ambitious attempt by Guns N' Roses, the band that dominated the 1990s with a mix of fury, excess, and vulnerability. Although its official release came in September 1991, on Use Your Illusion 1, the story of November Rain had begun almost a decade earlier. Axl Rose had been working on the song since 1983, when he was just dreaming of conquering the Los Angeles scene. It is even known that he considered including it on 1987's Appetite for Destruction, although its scale and ambition made it too big for that moment. After years of obsession and perfectionism, Axl Rose finally brought the song to the studio, with all the power of Guns N' Roses and a majestic string arrangement, conducted by himself. The result was a monumental 8-minute and 58-second work, an emotional journey that begins with the fragility of the piano and ends in an explosion of guitars and orchestra. Axl's voice reaches perhaps its most heart-wrenching interpretation here, and Slash's guitar solo is one of those timeless moments that defined an era. It's no surprise that the song made history. It became the longest song to reach the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the United States, peaking at number 3, and remained on the Australian Top 100 for 22 weeks. But if November Rain is unforgettable, it's not just because of the music, but also because of its music video. With a budget of close to $1 million, one of the most expensive of all time, and part of a visual trilogy alongside Don't Cry and Estranged, the video shows Axl marrying supermodel Stephanie Seymour, his partner at the time, in a wedding doomed to failure. Over time, November Rain has become much more than a song. It is a testament to the boundless ambition of a band at the height of its creative power, the vulnerable cry of a frontman obsessed with perfection, and confirmation that rock could be as grand and emotional as a symphony. Amid excess, chaos, and genius, Guns N' Roses created their most immortal moment here. Because if there is one song capable of summing up the greatness and drama of rock in the 1990s, that song is November Rain. No Rolling Stone song better captures the dark and turbulent spirit of the late 1960s than Gimme Shelter. Released in December 1969 as the opening track on the album Let It Bleed, the song was born in the midst of turmoil, the Vietnam War, racial unrest in the streets of the United States, political assassinations, and an atmosphere of widespread mistrust. As Mick Jagger said in an interview with Rolling Stone, "It was a tough and violent time, it all seemed like some kind of apocalypse." And that's exactly what Gimme Shelter is, an urgent cry from someone seeking shelter from the storm. Keith Richards wrote the riff, one of the most menacing and recognizable in history, while watching the rain from a window in London, immersed in a sea of jealousy and frustration over Jagger's relationship with his then-partner, Anita Pallenberg. That personal storm ended up becoming a metaphor for a global storm. Although it was never released as a single, the song became a centerpiece of the Stones' legacy and a regular presence in films and documentaries that portray the darker side of American culture. Martin Scorsese included it in Goodfellas, Casino, and The Departed as a sonic statement of the moral chaos portrayed in his stories. But what really elevates Gimme Shelter to the rock pantheon is its vocal performance. Mary Clayton's heart-wrenching contribution to the chorus is, for many, one of the most powerful moments ever captured on record. Gimme Shelter was not only a warning from the Stones to their generation, it was also their own catharsis, a masterpiece built from the rubble of an era marked by violence, paranoia, and despair. Half a century later, its message remains as relevant as ever. The storm is never too far away, but there is always the possibility of finding shelter. There are songs that are more than just a moment on an album. They are the climax, the punch in the gut, the instant when music and emotion merge into one. For Pink Floyd, that song was Comfortably Numb. Included on the monumental 1979 concept album, The Wall, the song was written by Roger Waters and David Gilmour. But beyond the disputes over who contributed more, the truth is that together they achieved one of rock's masterpieces. In The Wall, we follow the story of Pink, a rock star who, after a life marked by loss, fear, and alienation, locks himself behind a psychological wall. By the time we get to Comfortably Numb, Pink is on the verge of collapse, trapped in his own mind and disconnected from the outside world. His manager finds him unconscious in a hotel room, and a doctor is called to revive him, not out of genuine concern, but to ensure that the show goes on. Waters explained that the song was born out of a personal experience. During a concert in Philadelphia in 1977, on the Animals tour, he suffered severe abdominal pain. A doctor injected him with sedatives to keep him on his feet, which he himself described as the longest 2 hours of my life, trying to put on a show when I could barely lift my arm. That feeling of being there but not being there, of functioning like a machine while inside you are disconnected. At concerts, every performance of Comfortably Numb becomes the most anticipated moment of the night. Gilmour's final solo, in particular, is more than music. It is pure catharsis, a six-string cry that still moves generations today. Since its release, Comfortably Numb has become one of the most beloved songs by fans, always present on Waters and Gilmour's tours and even in their legendary show in Berlin after the fall of the wall. It has been voted time and time again as one of the best songs, and its guitar solo continues to top all the rankings. Few songs manage to convey that feeling so perfectly: the cold, the disconnection, the refuge behind one's own walls. That mixture of pain and comfort, being comfortably numb, may be the only way to move forward, even if it costs you. A piano, 3 chords, and a man sitting in front of the whole world, challenging it to close its eyes for a moment and dare to imagine. This is how Imagine begins, one of the most iconic and transcendent songs not only in rock, but in the entire history of music. After the creative and media storm that was the Beatles, John Lennon found in this song his personal manifesto, his utopian dream turned into melody. Composed and recorded in 1971, Imagine is both brutally simple and heartbreakingly profound. In just over 3 minutes, Lennon lays bare his purest, almost childlike idealism, yet one that is also imbued with enormous courage. He invites the listener to visualize a world without borders, without wars, without divisive religions, without destructive greed.
Imagine all the people.
Lennon wrote the lyrics inspired by Yoko Ono's poems and writings, especially her book Grapefruit, where small poetic instructions invite us to imagine impossible but beautiful scenarios. John would later admit that much of the concept came from her. The message is very Yoko. In those days, I was a little too selfish and macho to admit it. But in reality, it's as much hers as it is mine.
You may say I'm a dreamer.
Musically, there is no complication. A soft piano arpeggio over a simple progression, a drum bass, and a barely perceptible bass, and that unique Lennon voice, brittle and sincere, which seems closer than ever. What is truly striking about Imagine is that its message remains uncomfortable, almost subversive, even more than 50 years later. It was banned by several radio stations during times of conflict and criticized by conservative sectors for its anti-religiousness or covert communism. But Lennon never thought of it that way. For him, it wasn't politics or ideology, it was empathy, it was imagining what would happen if the things that separate us disappeared. With Imagine, John Lennon didn't just write a song, he wrote a symbol, an ownerless white flag, raised by millions of people who, for a moment, believe that a better world is possible. It's no coincidence that the song has accompanied protests, tributes, human rights campaigns, and vigils in every corner of the planet. In 2004, Rolling Stone magazine ranked it number 3 on its list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. And, for many, it remains number 1 in the collective heart. A teenage roar turned into a song. An accident, a joke on the wall of a cheap room, a distorted riff that changed the history of rock forever. Thus was born Smells Like Teen Spirit, the brightest and most painful jewel in Nirvana's short and incandescent career. In the early months of 1991, Kurt Cobain was already tired of the dense, muddy darkness of Bleach, his first album. He wanted to write something bigger, more challenging, more immediate. In his own words, he wanted the ultimate pop song, but with a punk edge that would cut complacency to pieces. Inspired by the soft loud dynamics of the Pixies and his secret love for the melodies of the Beatles, Kurt let it all collide in his head one afternoon in Olympia. The song came about almost as a joke. Kurt Cobain read some graffiti that a friend of his had written on the wall of his apartment. Kurt smells like Teen Spirit, referring to the Teen Spirit deodorant his girlfriend used. It sounded mysterious, almost rebellious to Kurt, without him even knowing it was a brand name. That ambiguity was perfect for what he felt he needed to convey, a kind of rebellion without a cause or clear direction, a silent protest against everything and nothing at the same time. It was nihilistic babbling, pure sarcasm disguised as a generational slogan. He himself mocked his own status as a spokesperson, saying, "I'm such a negative guy that I can't even believe people think there's a message in my songs. There isn't. I was just frustrated, that's all." The legacy of a roar with Smells Like Teen Spirit was that Nirvana not only killed hair metal, it redefined success in rock. It opened the door for grunge, for Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, and for a whole new kind of musical sensibility that didn't need perfection, but authenticity. It was number 1 across half the world, sold millions of copies, and Nevermind ended up even overtaking Michael Jackson in the charts. Today, more than 30 years later, the song is still as searing as ever. It still sounds just as rebellious, just as alienated, just as desperately human. And that is precisely what makes it timeless. It wasn't made to please, it was made to bleed. By the time the Beatles set out to write the songs that would make up their legendary 1967 album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the songwriting collaboration between John Lennon and Paul McCartney had changed dramatically from the early days, when they wrote songs face-to-face, exchanging phrases. Now, it was much more common for one of them to write a song on their own, and then bring it to the other so they could edit it, critique it, and perhaps embellish it. John Lennon was leafing through the Daily Mail when he came across two headlines: the death in a traffic accident of Tara Brown, heir to Guinness and a personal friend of the band, and the news that exactly 4,000 potholes had been filled in the streets of Blackburn. Both seemingly trivial details became the core of his lyrics, a cynical, melancholic, almost surreal look at the routine of life and death, at the absurdity of modern society. McCartney, for his part, contributed his iconic middle section, a fragment that evokes the morning rush, coffee, the subway, the little daily races. Musically, A Day in the Life is unlike anything that had come before. The Beatles, along with their producer George Martin and a group of 40 classical musicians, created a structure that oscillates between minimalist delicacy and orchestral madness, with a crescendo that seems to devour the entire universe. When it was released in 1967, the BBC banned it on the grounds that it glorified drugs. But listeners were not fooled. They recognized it as a masterpiece of poetic ambiguity, a disturbing and beautiful portrait of modern alienation. Decades later, it continues to appear regularly at the top of any list of the best songs of all time, with musicians of all generations pointing to it as proof that rock could be real art. Like a Rolling Stone, not only redefined Bob Dylan's career, it redefined what popular music could be. It was the moment when electric guitars became weapons, poetry became a message, and rock ceased to be innocent entertainment and became rebellious, uncomfortable, eternal art. By then, Dylan was already a folk icon, a young prodigy from Minnesota who, with his acoustic guitar and protest lyrics, had won over an audience seeking a voice for their outrage. But Dylan hated cages, even if they were made of applause. Fed up with expectations, dissatisfied with his own direction, he even considered retiring from music. Upon his return from an exhausting tour of England, he locked himself in his home in Woodstock, New York, and poured his fury onto paper, more than 20 pages of loose verses, a lyrical vomit full of contempt and brutal honesty. It wasn't a song yet, it was a settling of scores with someone, or with everyone, a clean, vengeful hatred. In his electric vocal performance, his best to date, Dylan proved that everything he did was, from the beginning and forever, rock and roll. Like a Rolling Stone is the best song I've ever written, he admitted categorically at the end of 1965, and it still is. More importantly, the song opened the door for rock music to become an adult art form, capable of being cruel, uncomfortable, profound, and massive all at once. In addition to being a standalone hit, Like a Rolling Stone was the manifesto for an entire album, Highway 61 Revisited, released weeks later in August 1965. There, Dylan finished dynamiting his folk image and fully embraced electricity, rage, and surrealist poetry. In 2004 and 2021, Rolling Stone magazine crowned it the best song of all time. Trying to get inside an artist's mind is almost impossible. And that is precisely where the magic of a great song lies. It belongs to us without us ever fully understanding it. In 1975, Queen was already a well-known band. But that year, they would change the history of music forever, and write one of the most unforgettable songs ever recorded, Bohemian Rhapsody, a cultural phenomenon, a 6-minute masterpiece without a chorus, divided into 6 acts, mixing ballad, opera, hard rock, and an absolutely epic a cappella finale. Released on October 31, 1975, as part of the legendary album A Night at the Opera, the song redefined what rock could be, and what a popular song could be. It was born from the brilliant and eccentric mind of Freddie Mercury, who wrote almost the entire song on his piano in his Kensington apartment. For Freddie himself, each fragment of the song represented a different facet of his personality, and to this day, no one knows exactly what it really means. Some see it as a veiled confession about his personal life and sexuality. Others see it as a surreal opera about guilt and redemption. Freddie, in his usual style, never clarified anything. "It's just one of those songs that has a bit of fantasy in it," he once said. The band rehearsed for weeks before entering Rockfield Studio in Wales on August 24, 1975. They spent more than 3 weeks recording 10 to 12 hours a day. The operatic section alone took a whole week, with more than 180 takes to overlay the voices of Freddie, Brian, and Roger until they achieved that majestic chorus. When it was finally released as a single, the reaction was earth-shattering. In the United Kingdom, it reached #1, remaining at the top for 9 consecutive weeks. It sold millions of copies, put Queen on everyone's lips, and proved that rock could also be theatrical, grandiloquent, and epic without losing its essence. Today, it remains one of the most played songs in history, and its iconic music video, one of the first great music videos ever made, paved the way for an entire industry. Bohemian Rhapsody didn't just break the rules. It redefined what rock could be, a complete spectacle, a sonic drama, an emotional journey impossible to label.
Take you down, 'cause I'm going to.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white.
Finished with my woman, 'cause she couldn't help me.
London calling to the faraway towns. Now war is declared.
If there is one song that sums up the myth, genius, and controversy of Led Zeppelin, it is Stairway to Heaven. More than half a century after its release, it remains the song most associated with the band and one of the most influential in rock history. 8 minutes long, without a single chorus and unusually complex for a single, it redefined the rules of what a song could be on the radio. Jimmy Page knew it was time to compose something that was not only powerful but also ambitious. Something that could grow slowly, change shape halfway through, and reach an unforgettable climax. Stairway to Heaven was born from that idea. Not just a song, but an experience. 8 minutes divided into 3 acts, a delicate acoustic introduction that seemed like a whisper. A middle section that began to build tension with the entrance of 12-string guitars and electric piano.
If there's a bustle in your
And finally, an electric shock of pure hard rock, crowned by one of the most acclaimed guitar solos in history. However, since its release, theories about hidden messages in the song, supposedly audible when played backwards, have multiplied. Some claimed to hear strange phrases, fueled by Page's well-known fascination with the occult. Both Page and Plant repeatedly denied the rumors, calling them ridiculous, and explaining that the lyrics were actually inspired by Celtic legends, as well as Plant's own mystical sensibility. Today, Stairway to Heaven remains a cultural touchstone. It was included in the U.S. Library of Congress's National Recording Registry for its historical and aesthetic significance. Its status has not been weakened by criticism from those who consider it pretentious, nor by Plant's own disenchantment, who has said that he no longer identifies with the lyrics and rarely performs it in public. However, it continues to win over new generations. It is a song that does not age, because its musical layers and lyrical ambiguity allow each listener to find their own meaning. It has been played millions of times on the radio, covered, parodied, and even banned in guitar shops because of what it represents for aspiring musicians. Not all songs achieve what it did. Few feel so universal, so inevitable. Half a century later, Stairway to Heaven remains what it always was, a stairway we all want to climb, even though none of us knows exactly what is at the top.